We are live. Back in the place to be. We are three dudes in a record store. I am Greg Horn, your host, the Skip Bayless of Music Television. Joining us kind of symbolically, kind of metaphorically, whateverly, home, doing his thing, the Metal Maniac. And next to me, the man, the myth, the legend, the Emperor Esoteric, the B-Meister.
B-Meister,
What's
I
up,
like
B?
that. That's cool. I was going to say B-Dog.
What's up?
Man, Sunday, day off. You didn't have the day off.
No, I haven't had a
You
day
had
off
to work.
in quite a while. As you can tell, we're kind of shifted. We do this on a Wednesday, but some life things came up, so we decided to do it on Sunday.
Yeah, sometimes stuff got to get postponed, but normally we'll stick to Wednesdays. It's a good midweek.
Is that like we're not we're just now getting used to being able to see each other on camera when we film, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking and I'm like, is that Judd Nelson on your shirt?
Yeah.
Look at that, dude.
The criminal.
There was no part of Judd Nelson that looked like he was in high school when that movie came out.
It was good enough for me, though.
Judd Nelson, it was like Grease. Every single person in Grease looks like they're in their 40s.
I think back in those days, that they were all too old for the roles. All the high school movies and stuff.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah, today it seems like they're able to get people, the actors.
Yeah, you can at least close.
Yeah,
close enough.
But back then, you'd have people that looked 30 and they're in high school. But it's cool. It worked. You can take me out of the 80s, but you can't take the 80s out of me, man.
He did the best out of the five. He did the best.
He's kind of the star
His character
of the film, really.
arc. He has the biggest character arc. He's kind of like, oh, what is he? And then by the end, he's kind of like, okay, like the muse of the group.
Yeah,
hooks up with.
The character is more peripheral. It's supposed to be about all five. Yeah, of them, but I think it did really kind of anchor on him.
Yeah, and he gets to hook up with what's her nuts. The redhead.
What's her nuts? That's Claire.
It's been a long day.
It was Claire. Molly Ringwald, of course.
Yes, Molly. She's
my first crush, man.
She's still good looking.
She was a cutie pie.
She is a cutie pie. I guess we should just stop beating around this bush and tell you guys what the topic is today. It's a little bit esoteric in a way, and B's specialty. We had discussed in previous episodes that we're going to touch on again, but it might be a little. I think we wanted to get far enough away from it to not redo the same list we had, but we did underrated bands. So this one we went never rated. They really probably only made a small blip on the radar, maybe didn't hit the radar at all. And so we decided to do that, have a little fun with that, maybe kind of get you guys hyped on. They might be older records, but they're probably new to you because you haven't heard them or didn't hear them much, and now you're going to give them a shot.
Yeah. In my list, some of these artists may even still be around, not all of them. Going through my collection, it was a little tough to find stuff that I love or have loved for a long time that, like you said, really never got on anybody's radar. I'd like to say I dig more stuff like that. Of course, I love lots of obscure stuff, but I wanted to find artists that really are just unknown. You know, maybe they have a cult following, but even within that, still pretty limited exposure. And I guess the add-on to that is that we feel that they should have been bigger.
Yeah, for whatever reason, whether it was they got caught in a weird time frame or they had some lineup changes or there were some label issues that really kind of hemmed them up. I think these bands maybe could have, maybe should have been something, but just weren't. So I'm going to crack into my honorable mentions. But before I do that, I have the Metal Maniacs list for tonight, and I have his list for Sabbath because he didn't get it to me in time. So
that's right.
So real quick, let me hit you with Jay's Sabbath list. So his top 5 Sabbath records. Number 5, he's going Headless Cross.
Yeah, that one didn't make our list last time for either of us.
I think I put it in my honorable mentions.
Oh, okay.
He got Seventh Star at number 4, Heaven and Hell at number 3. He put Technical Ecstasy number 2.
The Maniac's a maniac for a reason,
right? And number 1, I don't even know if it was on. It definitely wasn't on my 10 at all. I think you might have had it. Paranoid at number 1.
Yeah,
I left it off my list completely.
No, we don't hate Paranoid or anything, but it definitely not. Just in our overall assessment, that one didn't rate as high.
And he's got it number 1. That's why he's part of the 3.
I think
he fills those tracks.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, if he loves Technical Ecstasy, more power to him.
Bro, that's high for that record. High for that record. That is.
That's why we got him in the crew. He brings a different perspective,
man. He brings a perspective. All right. Bands that never hit that probably should have. My freshman or sophomore year of high school, I was into the Cult, which I was going to put in my 5, and of course I forgot to grab it. So I was into the Cult. Cult released Electric, and that record, I had to have it.
Oh, yeah.
And being going to Catholic school, being lower on the socio-economical scale, I couldn't always afford the things I wanted to. So I hit up a friend of mine, said, "Hey, could you make a copy of that for me? Let me listen to it." So he did. So I gave him my tape. He put Electric on one side. On the other side, he put this thing I had never heard in my life. Super low-end production, super lo-fi, kind of, I didn't know how to take it. And the band was Exorcist.
Wow, okay.
And the album is called Nightmare Theater.
Now, I got to ask first off, did that complement the Cult on the other side, or was it kind of...
It is like apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. So this came out in 86. It was made up. It was a band made up of musicians from other bands, most notably Virgin Steel, who I never listened to anyway. They never put out a second record. That was a one-off, and then they never. It almost sounds low-end, like early Venom, but with a real devilly.
I've heard the name Exorcist, but I've never listened to it. And somebody from Virgin Steel, which was, I think, kind of in that Manowar territory. Maybe?
See, that's probably why I never listened to it, because you know how I feel about that band.
That's going to be our ultimate, last episode, the toe-to-toe on the Manowar.
Oh, my God.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
No. I'll let you have a guest host for that one. So B and I are always saying, I'm always like, hey dude, let's do an episode on supergroups. Let's do supergroups. Never comes up. So I just said,
I'm not good with the supergroups.
I just said,
I'll talk about Night Ranger all night.
That's kind of a supergroup, huh? 1991 Contraband.
Wow.
Members of Shark Island, who I'd never heard of before. He was the singer. MSG, because it's Schenker is in this group.
Whoa, okay.
The drummer from Rat, Blotzer.
Bobby Blotzer. Whoa.
Tracy Gunn from LA Guns, and one of the females, one of the ladies, the lovely ladies from Vixen.
Wow.
The bass player, I think Cher Peterson, is in this band. Really good, really bluesy, but still in that glammy kind of way. They didn't write any of the songs on this, so it would have been interesting to see if they could have gotten another record where they could actually write and do some stuff.
What are they, all cover songs?
Mostly, yeah. It's just
wow
stuff you've probably never heard before. The album was a massive flop, so they disbanded and they never did anything again.
So you love it that much?
I do.
It's a killer record.
I really
That's the point of
enjoy
this.
it. While I was making this list, I almost had several entries that were going to be like twofers or threefers. I started finding these rhythms and patterns of you'd see a record, but then there are 3 or 4 bands that are somewhat similar.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those bands, I'm a huge fan of the 90s as a decade. I think where pop music was in the 80s, how you could have 5 to 10 pop songs on a radio station. They're all pop acts, but none of them sound anything like each other.
Yeah.
And the 90s did a lot with that same thing. And there was some weird, like, I don't know if you want to call it alt country rock or alt whatever, but there was kind of like a little bit of Southern vibe with a little bit of rock. And one of my favorite bands from 93, Cry of Love.
Oh. I've seen their albums, never listened to them, or I don't even know how many they have.
I don't remember how many they have either, but this is the only one you really need to listen to. This one is great. This is a great record. Came out in 93.
So it's an alternative rock group with a bit of
Americana
with
a bit of almost like a 120 minutes version of Southern rock.
Interesting.
In a way.
Yeah. There was bands like that coming along.
They made the first record. They toured. The frontman said it was too much for him, and he quit. Huh. There was an album or two after that, but it never hit after that. They had some periphery bands that were kind of on the same thing, like Brother Kane and Screaming Cheetah Wheelies, and probably the one that maybe a little blues Traveler was kind of that same way, and the one that maybe hit that's still kind of around is Big Head Todd and the Monsters kind of feel.
Okay.
So it was that.
Yeah. So we should make it clear these are albums that we're recommending.
Yeah. We do have I do have 5 things or 4 things or however many things are here, but you should really listen to these.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge power metal guy, but some of it's really good. In 2006, power metal from Denver, Celador.
Wow.
They are named after a J.R.R. Tolkien interview where he said the word cellar and the word door sounded really good together. So they crushed them together, put Celador. Doesn't have anything to do with Tolkien after that.
Weird.
They had so many lineup changes that it really kind of just derailed every chance they ever had. Put out 2 records. I don't even know what the second one sounds like, but that one's really good. I kind of really wanted to put this one in but I just couldn't fit him in. I know he's going to like it. 1988 crossover, kind of thrashy, kind of punky.
Oh, man.
Crumbsuckers.
That's one of my favorite records right there.
Beast on Back. The singer left after this record because to live up to the expectations of the underground release they put out before this one. I've never been able to get my hand. That 6, I didn't even hear about them until this record.
Yeah.
And I love it. Kind of in the same vein, Scatterbrain was kind of in the same vein. It just, for whatever reason, that when that didn't take off, they just kind of
I think that's the second record. I feel like it's their second one. All right. I have both of those. I have that in the previous one. Yeah. One's a little bit more produced and they're tighter. It's like those crossover bands. I view, generally speaking, they started out as hardcore punk bands and started realizing that they could play.
Yeah. DRI.
Yeah, more technical stuff, and the metal started coming in, and I have this expression I said for a long time for punk bands going metal. Once you go metal, you don't go back. It's not like they ever got good at metal and then reverted back to some primitive hardcore stuff. And I would say, obviously, DRI is the biggest name in the crossover style metallic punk stuff. But to me, that Crumbsuckers is some of the best.
I love that record. I was so stoked when I finally got my hands on it. It was hard to find.
Yeah.
Another one that I had, it took me forever to find. I don't know, mislabeled or unable to label or something kind of. It was released in 1990, so this is now we're getting into this weird, 89, 90, 91. There was kind of like, where on the fence do you want to be? Are you in the Sunset Strip type metal type camp? Are you in this very blossoming early grunge phase? And Grunt Truck kind of got lost in that shuffle. This is Inside Yours. It was released in 1990. They are from Seattle. It was labeled grunge, but it was wayer than a lot of the grungy stuff, with almost a little funk element in it. They kind of got lost in that whole Seattle scene.
I remember them being around. Probably had a few friends that had maybe that CD. I don't know, maybe some early 7-inch singles or something. They were certainly a band coming from the underground. But yeah, I didn't dive into those guys.
You remember the music video and Flow?
Oh yeah.
So that night they opened for Pearl Jam on that show.
Wow.
And they opened for a lot of big acts. And they opened for big grunge acts. They opened metal acts, but they just never could quite find their groove.
Based on that album, do you feel like the point is that they should have been bigger? They should have broken through more?
I think they should have broken through more. I just don't think their sound was as appealing to the masses because you couldn't quite, you didn't quite know where to put them.
Yeah.
With Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, you kind of, all right, they're grungy, they're not really, but you kind of knew where to put them. Truck was kind of, it's hard to place a label on them, and they just got lost in and then those bands got so, they're definitely not at a Soundgarden level, but they're still fun to listen to. They're still great.
I had something I almost put on my list, and now I can't think of it. But it was kind of similar to that, and I left it off my list because I was thinking, maybe the band didn't go farther because they just didn't really want to. Like bands coming up from the under, kind of at this level where it could tip the scales and break out into bigger, more exposure, bigger audience attention. But, for whatever reason, maybe they were purposely remaining too edgy, too inaccessible to people. And so
do you really want, like, everybody wants Metallica level success, but do you want to put in the work it takes? Like
there's
the grueling touring schedule that you have to.
It could even be about compromising your sound a little bit. And some bands, that we might think are amazing, just shouldn't be at that next level. They need to remain in the underground because that's kind of where they're doing.
Sometimes it's better when they remain in the underground.
We love above and below.
Yeah, right in the middle.
So that's a cool list to start off with, man. I knew you drinking
a bubbly. That's right. It's the way we do it here, man.
Not an energy drink.
Getting that sparkling water in.
Well, I was thinking about my selections too, going through my collection. I just kept thinking you're gonna have stuff that you really know, that you've really listened to these artists or these particular albums and have that clear sense of they're making your list. But I am the more esoteric one, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't even have any notes or anything.
There's some limbs. You're going to be out on them.
I'm just going to sort of to go off my dome here.
Did you listen to that video I sent you the other day?
No, I forgot.
Oh, you got to listen to that. It's like acid jazz.
Oh,
like
okay.
doom jazz.
Oh. Well, that's really funny that you should say doom jazz, because that's exactly what my first pick is.
Stop it. What is it?
Different than probably the group you were trying to show me, but this is, if you want to create a new genre called doom jazz, this would fit right in there. These guys are known. They're not completely unknown, but they're not big at all. Is this
That's what I sent you? Oh my God, bro. Dude, we were psychically linked.
Shit.
That's crazy.
Dope, man, I don't even know what to say about that.
That is so spooky.
It is doom
That
jazz.
is so spooky.
Just like this band. This band is.
And I had never heard of them before. I saw somebody pumping them up, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta send this to B." And then you bring it, bro, and you didn't even listen to it. That is so strange. Dude, I swear to God, we do not talk about this before we.
It's true. It's true. We purposely don't talk about it. We don't want to correct each other's.
Just for these reasons, these little moments.
So this is Boren und der Club of Gore, or Boren and the Club of Gore. This one's called Black Earth. They have one before this called Sunset Mission.
Yeah, those are the two big.
I got turned on to these guys by a friend of mine, a decade ago. And the first time I heard it, it sounded very much like the music to Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
you might have
elevator music on steroids.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, I don't know a lot about this band. I've looked at their Wikipedia page before. They're a trio: bass, drum, and piano. And I believe early on in their career, they were trying to do more black metal.
Makes sense with their sound.
Extremely dark metal stuff, and then decided to shift into being this dark, doomy lounge jazz kind of thing.
It's dope. I dig it.
The tones, the production of it, the bass and piano, it does kind of give you that Twin Peaks feeling at first, but the more you listen to it, you kind of move away from that assumption. But it's also the pace of it. The tempos that they play at are just these suspended time tempos.
Especially on a piano, it's so weird.
Yeah,
You're
they're
expecting all these notes to fill in these gaps,
and they're not there.
And you're just like.
And same with the drums and the bass.
Yeah, it's really good.
The drummer is so spare. It's there. It's not like the drums aren't a presence in it. They very much are, but somehow they just are extremely good at this spare use of each of their instruments in this doom jazz sound.
If playing at speed is difficult, then the opposite has to be equally true. Playing so slowly makes each note resonate even more than the last, and you're like you're waiting for this thing to just drop, and it never does, and you're like, wow. Like,
seriously, check these guys out if that sounds good to you. If you can't remember the name Boren under Club of Gore, try to remember Sunset Mission or Black Earth.
Yeah, spin that.
And they're probably still together. Those are their first two full lengths, I believe. I think they might have had an EP. There's a follow-up to those called Dolores. That's pretty good. Those two early ones are my favorite, and they may still be putting stuff out, but they just...
It's like if Sun wanted to slow their pace down and relax.
Well, Sun is already very slow, but
even,
if they were attempting to go more...
It's like funeral dirge jazz. It's...
Yeah,
it's pretty next level,
and
it's nice. I like it.
You could imagine a smoky jazz club where there's like not even any lights on the band.
Yeah.
Maybe just
And
one
they're in
red,
robes,
maybe
like
one red
sun.
light bulb hanging over them or something.
Oh man,
It's
ugly as shit.
It's a creepy sound, but it's not unsettling. It's actually beautiful, but it is kind of a spooky, creepy
Yeah,
sound.
that's good stuff right there. Coming hard at the very
That's
first.
so dope that's what you were.
Dude, that is so crazy that you didn't even listen to it, and that's your first.
That happened last week. I was talking about Can.
Yeah,
Or
I had been listening to
the
that
episode before the Sabbath one
without us talking. I need to
Yeah.
get some of those early Can records.
So this next one is a woman I discovered not that long ago. I just came across these records and they looked interesting. And come to find out that she has a long, interesting history in her career. Her name is Esra Mohawk. Mohawk is a married name. That was not her original name. She married a man whose last name was Mohawk. I think this woman could have been bigger. That's why she's on my list here. I think she should have been, perhaps. Maybe she didn't really want to continue trying to break out as a solo artist. But her musical sound, in my opinion, significantly fits in with Joni Mitchell, Laura Nyro, maybe even Carole King, and the kind of Brill Buildings singer-songwriter vibe. She's from the East Coast, but could fit in with the West Coast Laurel Canyon scene.
Kinda,
Yeah, she's not folky like Joan.
Folky like Joan.
Closer to Joni Mitchell and Laura Nyro combined, kind of. Laura Nyro's East Coast, and Joni was obviously West Coast via Canada. So you got that kind of Laurel Canyon scene, then you got the New York Brill Building scene, and so this woman is kind of blending a little jazziness in with the folk, which is a little bit more to the Laura Nyro side of things. And so she only dropped a couple records and then got into more behind the scenes stuff. She married, I think, someone in broadcasting. And so she ended up writing music for stuff like Schoolhouse Rock, and maybe even TV shows or things like that, kind of background stuff, or stuff that she didn't really, get prominent credit for.
The lead singer of Autograph did that. Wrote a lot of TV.
Yeah, some
stuff.
people end up finding that that's a more lucrative career move or more comfortable for them or something. So she just has a beautiful voice, and if you like those artists I mentioned, you would totally like her. So that's my second one. This one, let's jump to something a little different here. In the mid to late 90s, I think somewhere around 97, this label called Raucous Records came out with this compilation called Lyricist Lounge, Volume 1. Don't believe there was a Volume 2.
Those liars.
They did put out another compilation album, but it wasn't called Lyricist Lounge, I don't believe. And probably the most prominent artist that came out of that Raucous Records camp is Mos Def.
Yeah, Mos Def, Q-Tip, De La Soul.
And Mos Def really got his biggest exposure on De La Soul's Stakes is High record.
Yeah. Black Thought, Common,
Pharaoh. So there's big names on
Saul
here.
Williams, holy moly.
There's big names on here.
Tubella,
and
amazing.
It's a double record set, and each record is hosted by somebody.
KRS-One.
Yeah, that's a dope track.
This
that
is incredible.
Zach De La Rocha. So you've identified all these big names that have gone on to have the big hip hop careers, but there's a track on here by an artist that didn't go anywhere, and it's here it is, Cypher Complete, Bring Hip Hop Back. And that is just a slamming hardcore hip hop track. The lyrics on that track, called Bring Hip Hop Back, are essentially slamming all of the rap artists that they think are phony, that are just in for a cash grab. And the point of the song is kind of responding to where commercial rap went, and they're talking about hip hop roots.
Yeah.
And can we get back to those hip hop roots?
There was some of that stuff I could not stand. All that like No Limit Records and all that.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand
At the time, I
any
didn't
of
like
that
it.
stuff.
I actually find some of that stuff more enjoyable now as more kind of like party music.
Definitely.
At the time, I was like, this shit's whack, man.
For sure.
So there may be a couple other artists on here that didn't really go anywhere, like Matrix and A Butta. That's a cool track too. But Cypher Complete, I don't even know that they had another song besides that song, and I have no idea what killed their thing.
This is like was it that early was EP that Metallica got on before they broke.
Oh yeah.
There's some serious heavyweights on that comp right there.
What was that, like metal comp? I know what you're talking about. Something about like your mother's nightmare or some weird shit like that.
Metal Blade or whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a few other artists on here that didn't go too far either, that were underground. But that one in particular, it's just always stuck with me that this song is so incredible and there's nothing else by them. Weird. And so you listen to that song and you go, I want to hear at least the whole album, if not more albums by them, and it just didn't happen.
They had one thing to say, they said it, and they dropped the mic, and
they fell apart for some reason
at that point.
Yeah, so Cypher Complete, Bring Hip Hop Back, off of this super fresh compilation. To me, this stuff is still fresh today. And also what's fun about it is in between songs, one record is hosted by De La Soul, and the other one I think is hosted by Kool Keith. So in between songs, there's these kind of little skits of them talking and introducing the next track that's going to come up. I honestly didn't really decide yet what my top 5 is. I think maybe I'll go to this one. So this is my 4th pick. This is a group that it's a duo, and it's mainly based off the music by this guy Jose Cota from Los Angeles, and I first heard him another album under a different name that was called Sleeper Hold, and they had played in Eureka, and I didn't know anything about it, but their album showed up at my store, and I really liked it. And then they came back a year later as this group called Bone, B-O-A-N. Oh, it's gonna look backwards, I guess. It's, I guess, what you generally call synthwave. It's kind of it's not really post-punk, but there's an edge to it that's a little punky, but it's very dancey synthwave stuff. Really poppy melodies, and it's got this woman singing who has this kind of monotone vocal style, but it's not annoying, it's not boring. They're a group that may be being enhanced by some drugs of some kind at the club, might make it exciting, but I love it regardless. It's really high energy. The album is called Menetroth. It's kind of an EP. It's got 5 songs. Maybe the real bang and highlight is a song called Bone Acid. So it's got kind of an acid house synthwave feel to it. I saw them live at a local venue, and at the time I could only get their cassette tape. Later on, I ordered the LP off the internet, and I chatted with them via email at one point. Hadn't gotten back around to communicating again, but I was hoping maybe they'd come back through Humboldt.
That'd be interesting.
And this came out on a label called Holodeck, which is out of Texas, I think, and they put out a whole bunch of modern synthwave. Really good. I picked this because I want them to have a much bigger following. I just think extremely good at what they do, and I don't know. And the woman who sings is Niana Saldana. So check out Boan. All right, I got one more for my. Make sure I don't want that in the list. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. You mentioned a band earlier, that kind of Americana alternative sound.
Mm-hmm.
He's called Souled American, SOUL. Came out of the Chicago area, and back in the mid to late 80s when they existed, they might have gone as far as the early 90s. They probably would have toured with bands like Camper Van Beethoven, possibly Uncle Tupelo.
Okay. Yeah.
So bands that were kind of starting to create that alt country vibe. I would compare them closer to Camper Van Beethoven, because even though there's an Americana rootsy vibe to it, there's also a little bit kind of gypsy vibe that Camper Van had. Although it's a very minimal outfit, it's just bass, drum, guitar, vocal. I read this article about them about a dozen years ago. I was on a flight from West Virginia, and I had gotten the annual music edition of the Believer magazine, and that also had this great article on the history of Norwegian black metal in it.
There's some good reading right there.
And that article and the article about this band, I think, were both written by a guy who had been a staffer at a San Francisco record store called Aquarius Records that specialized in obscure underground stuff and everything. So I really wanted this one. This is their debut, and I paid $50 to get it off the internet. But I had gone into Aquarius Records and bought the 4 CD box set that the guy about this had put out on his own label, because their stuff was so obscure. They're a band that could have been as big as those other bands.
None of whom were all that big, even.
Yeah, I mean,
some of those bands